Welcome into episode 55 of Ramie and Drew. I am Ramie Mackloff. That is Drew Flaggy. We're a couple of Milwaukee-based comedians. We talk about sports and whatever else might come to mind. And Drew, it's very exciting times for this show because our Wolves are headed to the Western Conference Finals. Our Wolves
Right.
are doing it. They knocked off Jokic and the Nuggets, and our Wolves are headed to the Western Conference Finals. Pretty exciting stuff for us and our Wolves.
You know, Bart Winkler's also been claiming the Wolves, which is
Yes.
pretty. I mean, I think everybody's claiming the Wolves. It doesn't matter. They're small enough.
I know somebody.
Like them.
I know somebody who can legitimately claim the Wolves and has his whole life, even when it wasn't very much fun to do so. And that is my friend Phil Mackey of SKOR
right.
North up in Minneapolis. That's
Wolves
right.
back.
The Wolves are back. The Wolves are back, baby.
I don't know if they were ever here in the first place, but they're here. They're back.
They were there when they had Kevin Garnett. They were absolutely.
They were there. Yeah. By the way, I love Ramie. Ramie is now claiming like his 9th NBA team. Like, okay, it was the Bulls as a child, and then it was the Bucks, and then it was the Wolves, and then the Kings. Now it's the Wolves again. Like, are you claiming the Pacers too if they get through the Celtics? Are we adding another team?
I'm hedging my bets, man. Like, why pick just one team? You know, only one team is going to win the title every year, Mackey. Why pick just one to root for? I'm hedging my bets here. Is all I'm doing.
Yeah, the Ramie's Raptors era was my favorite too back in 2019. Yeah, go Raptors! Rawr.
When I was up north for that series, like when the Bucks lost that series against the Raptors, and we were just sitting around a fire and we were watching the game on my laptop outside. And when the game went final, my cousins and we all just put our heads down like this, and my cousin's wife went, "I'll go make drinks," and she came out with just a tray of drinks for us because we were roughing that day.
That's great. But Phil, how does it feel? Like this is different for you. And we were talking a little bit before we came on the air, and you were telling me a little bit about it. But I know Drew went through it here in Milwaukee. I was here with a team that didn't win a title for 50 years, and for a long time was known for being bad or mediocre, and then all of a sudden was a championship contender, and then eventually a champion. And now you guys are going through that, and they're like, it's exciting, but there's also like a getting used to it period, isn't there?
Okay, yes, you've nailed like the getting used to it period is hilarious because first of all, there's a generation or two generations of Minnesota sports fans that haven't seen a men's team win a title since 1991. So whenever a team and there haven't been that many near misses either. No Minnesota men's team has been to a championship series or a Super Bowl since 1991 either. So there's an element of like, what do we do with our hands? Like we don't know how to act. And the roller coaster of emotions has been hilarious because if you go back to the first round, the Phoenix Suns absolutely destroyed the Timberwolves in 3 regular season games. The Wolves were 0-3 against the Suns in the regular season. And all the chatter down the stretch was avoid the Suns at all cost in the first round. And then the last game of the regular season, the Suns beat the Wolves by like 20 points again. And the first round draw is the Suns. So people immediately bailed right away. Like, oh, of course it's the Suns in the first round. The Wolves sweep the Suns despite the regular season. Okay, this is great. People are jumping on the bandwagon, and then they go up 2-0 on the Nuggets, including that ridiculous Game 2 blowout in Denver, where they played the best defense of any playoff game in basically Western Conference history. So fans were like just swarming to the bandwagon. And then they lose 3 straight to Denver, 2 at home, and then the Game 5. And people you should have seen the secondary market tickets for the first home game back when they were up 2-0, it was like $350 to get in the arena. Once they lost 3 straight, you could get into that Game 6 for like $40 because people are like, nope, it's over. Classic Wolves, right? But we've had to explain to people, no, this is the playoffs. It's 2 months. It's a grind. It's hell. You're playing Jokic for 2 weeks. And so you just have to sort of get used to you're going to get your ass kicked in some playoff games. It doesn't mean the series is over. Everyone take a deep breath. But I think they just beat the best team in the NBA. And now you're only at the halfway mark. So people are trying to figure out, like, how do I cope? This is going to really take 2 months if they pay it off. Yes, it will. So calm down.
Yeah, I mean, for us, did it ever get to a point up in Minneapolis where like it was embarrassing to wear Wolves
Oh yeah.
gear? And it's like people would be like, "Why are you wearing that?" Like, because like I mean, I got the red and green Buck stuff, and I was wearing that back in the day, and just people would be like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I love them. I don't know. Like Luke, Richard, and Bob Mute. I don't know what you want me to say." And it's just all those things, like all those shitty teams that I thought were, ooh, we're gonna be the 7 or 8 seed. Now we got Dame Lillard and Giannis, and I'm just like, this is the best thing that I could have ever asked for. And this is after a championship. And I've asked people like that are mad at like the way that the season ended for us with the injuries. I'm like, could you imagine if I stepped out of a portal into on July 20th, 2021, we're all throwing drinks around the Deer District. And I said, hey, you know how this feels tonight? Well, guess what? In 2 years, you're going to have Damian Lillard on this roster. And you're going to fucking hate him. Like that's what I want to tell you. Not only are you 2 years removed from a championship, you're going to get a top 75 player of all time. You're going to get a guy who's 5th all time in 3-pointers made in the NBA, and half the fan base will despise him because of Jalen Brunson. Like, that's where our fans people are like, we should trade Damian Lillard. It's like, why? He hurt his Achilles. It's okay.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing how fast that happens. Yeah, it is. It like really is. In the way that Giannis made Bucks basketball cool for the first time in like 20 years. It's the same thing Anthony Edwards is doing here for the Timberwolves. And I used to be a huge, and still am, a huge wrestling fan. And it was like there was a period there as a kid in like the mid 1990s where it was kind of embarrassing to tell your friends at school that you liked wrestling. And then Stone Cold Steve Austin came along and made it cool to watch wrestling in the late 90s. And that's like the Timberwolves, like you didn't dare wear your weird Wally Zerbiak jersey in the early 2000s or, Luke Ridnour jerseys. Yeah. And now it's awesome. I mean, like I was at a thrift store. There was an outdoor festival this last weekend between Game 6 and Game 7. And like people were swooping up Andrew Wiggins retro jerseys and Zerbiaks and stuff just to wear something nostalgic. It's totally flipped here.
When you talk about real quick, man, I almost called you Andrew. I've never called you Andrew ever in the history of our friendship.
Andrew.
Because you were talking about like how fast it can change. I feel like the Timberwolves fan base has changed their mind at least 3 or 4 different times on Karl Anthony Towns. Everybody is in love with him now, but there have been times where I know Wolves fans, you, Mackey, and I'm not like freezing cold takesing you or something, as I've seen some people do on Twitter, but you were done with Karl Anthony Towns, and you were like, just trade this guy and get as much as you can for him right now. Anthony Edwards comes along and just rejuvenates and revitalizes that guy's career, and all of a sudden, everybody's in love with him again.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, so you've hit on one of my favorite topics, which is the gotcha guy when it comes to sports takes. Yeah. I love freezing cold takes. But when Anthony Edwards or when Karl Anthony Towns against the Memphis Grizzlies in the playoffs 2 years ago is committing 2 dumb fouls in the first 3 minutes of the game and shooting 3 for 12 and spazzing at the officials and sabotaging the series and sabotaging games, he deserves to be criticized for that, for not living up to the moment. And then when he does the opposite 2 years later against the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets, and he's playing with poise and he's making the right passes out of double teams and he's not getting into foul trouble, he deserves to be praised for those things. And people are like, you need to apologize for your Karl Anthony Towns takes from 2 years ago. I mean, no, he's the one that needed to stop fouling like an idiot in the first 5 minutes of every game and figure out a way to stay composed for 48 minutes. But I will say I wanted him traded like 3 or 4 different times over the years. But here's the thing about him. Oftentimes when a guy is the leader of a franchise, but it's very obvious he's not good enough to be the one that carries you to wherever you have to go, if somebody else comes in, usually that first guy has to leave. Like in Timberwolves history, KG and Marbury came in kind of at the same time. KG gets a big contract. Marbury gets jealous, demands a trade. It blows up. And then a few years later, like 10 years later, Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio come in. And this is going to sound wild, but the Timberwolves front office wanted to reserve the 5-year max contract for Ricky Rubio. So they gave Kevin Love the 4-year max contract. He got offended, demanded a trade, and he leaves. Like, usually it's a falling out. So Cat's been the figurehead of this franchise for better or worse for like the last 7 or 8 years. Anthony Edwards comes in, clearly the brighter star, bigger personality, all these things. And I feel like in most cases, Carl would have to go somewhere else, like maybe get traded somewhere to be the second or third guy in line. Instead, he kind of shrugged his shoulders and was like, whatever, man, I just want to win. If I need to be the second or third guy on my own franchise that I've been at for 7 or 8 years, I'm fine with that. And he has totally deferred to Anthony Edwards, and it's worked out perfectly. It's a perfect situation for Cat and for Anthony Edwards and for the Wolves.
Well, it takes a pretty big man to be able to just do that and just swallow your pride and be like, all right, I'm not going to be the 30-point per game scorer now, I guess. And it's like, I don't know. I laughed, I think like a lot of people, at the Rudy Gobert trade. I'm like, why would you do this with Cat? And then obviously, well, I was wrong. That's a freezing cold take right there. It took a half a season for it to actually work, but then you got a full season of it working out great. So it looked dumb last year when it happened, but it's been great all this year.
Yeah, like it's funny because Tim Connolly is the president of basketball operations for the Wolves, and he built 95% of that Denver team that won the championship a year ago. But he came over to the Timberwolves right before Denver paid it off with the actual hoisting of a trophy, and the Wolves doubled his salary. Like, they made an offer he couldn't refuse, and he came in. He makes the Gobert trade within like a month of taking that job. He didn't have to, by the way. He could have just like sat in that chair for a year, surveyed the landscape. He comes in, he's there for 5 minutes, trades for Rudy Gobert, and people are like, what the hell? What is this guy doing? And it looked like a bad trade for like 15 months because they did not live up to expectations the first year. But he knew what type of roster would beat the Nuggets if he could just build it himself. So the crazy thing is, Tim Connolly had to sit there for like a year and a half and listen to everyone with a microphone, nationally and locally, tell him he's an idiot who should be fired or go somewhere else, knowing that he was probably right the entire time. But it just took a year and a half of patience before it actually worked on the court.
Well, we're getting
people not pleased with the Gobert trade, like up until it started work. What was the initial reaction, and then how bad did it get? It both at Gobert and the reaction to Connolly for making the trade.
Yeah. It was, fans booed Rudy early on when the Wolves, like at one point the Wolves had a closed door players only meeting after losing to the Pistons on like New Year's Eve. It was like really bad the first year, kind of 2 or 3 months in. And then there was the whole Kyle Anderson, Rudy Gobert punching on the sidelines incident at the end of the year. Yeah. And so it was weird vibes the whole time. And actually, it's funny because the trade that really actually brought everything together was when the Wolves offloaded 2 months of D'Angelo Russell's expiring contract for Mike Conley, which straight up would have been a fleecing of a trade because D'Lo's the biggest fraudulent. Like, you want to talk about fraudulent 20 points per game players in NBA history. I mean, D'Angelo Russell is right up there. But Mike Conley comes in as an adult in the room who's played with Rudy before, and we talk about like making it cool to be a Bucks fan, making it cool to be a Wolves fan. Mike Conley came into the locker room and made it cool to like Rudy Gobert and to pass the ball to Rudy Gobert and embrace what Rudy Gobert is saying about defense. So they make that trade, but they also get Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a throw-in, and he's one of their best rotation players. And I think like Conley coming in changed everything because D'Lo would openly mock Gobert in front of reporters and refuse to pass him the ball, and it was really toxic. And Conley winds up coming in being like, no, enough with that, man. Like, here's how you play with Rudy. I did it in Utah for years. This is going to work out. And then Anthony Edwards maturing and adding another layer to his game in the playoffs. Like, that's how it all came together.
Well, yeah, and like I still think there's a stink around Rudy Gobert just politically with the whole COVID thing where he took it, where he got everybody. And I mean, you still go back, you're like, that is pretty funny.
Touching all the microphones. Yeah.
So dumb.
Still funny. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna make a bunch about that. And he was just like, it's just a cold. Who cares? And then it's like, oh shit, I just shut down the whole league. Oops.
Yeah, that's right.
We were open mic, like we were at an open mic, and one of our friends who I reference on the show a lot, our friend Ben, was like, dude, the NBA just shut down. And I was like, Rudy. 4 months without basketball. Like I was like, all right, they're down for 2 weeks. They're gonna sanitize everything, and the Stifle Tower is coming back. People call him the Sniffle Tower and stuff. That was funny. Like, and still, he's great.
Yeah, you know what's weird about it? We made up a new stat because when you watch him play, and if you watch him from afar, you kind of get but watching him on a game by game basis is a whole new experience because there are things that drive you nuts about him. It literally looks like he has ping pong paddles for hands because he's like Edward Scissorhands. You pass him the ball and like half the time it just clangs off one of his hands out of bounds. Like so his teammates even like hesitate to pass the ball. But if you could create a stat in the box score called the Nevermind, this is the stat that we made up on our Wolves podcast Flagrant House. So like there's blocks and you can quantify blocks and steals. But then like 20 times a game, you'll see an opposing point guard or somebody dribble into the lane, look up, see a praying mantis, Rudy Gobert, just waving his arms, and then be like, oh, never mind. I'm actually going to go back this way now because I can't get to the rim. And now there's 7 seconds left on the shot clock, and you're starting over again. He does that so many times. And so it's hard. Like when you watch him, and even Charles Barkley at halftime of Game 7 was like, you gotta bench this guy for the second half. It's like, no, man, he's actually sneakily leading the team in plus minus in the postseason. People dogged him in Utah because he got played off the court. Well, no, it was Donovan Mitchell, and then who's that Australian guy that jacks up threes for Utah a couple years ago? Joe Ingles is like their point of, resistance on the perimeter. It's like, yeah, those guys are getting smoked, and Rudy's the one that just gets posterized in the lane. So when you give Rudy actual good perimeter defenders and a point guard like Mike Conley, it just like it heightens how good he actually is. I've gained a new respect for Rudy Gobert.
People were shitting on him in the middle of this series, and it's like, dude, that's the MVP. That's a 3-time MVP that's hitting those shots over this guy. You know what? This isn't just any jamoke that's taking Rudy Gobert to school. It's a 3-time MVP, Rudy Gobert, even as the defensive player of the year. Like, you just hope to contain him, to borrow the old Sports Center catchphrase. You can't stop him. You only hope to contain him and like not get embarrassed, not get played off the court basically when you go against a Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. Like there's a couple video clips and Rudy's playing just the most ridiculous glued on defense you possibly can. He's following every single pump fake and everything perfectly, and then gets one of his massive hands right up at the point of the shot for Jokic, and Jokic leans back just like blindfolded and banks one up just like he does to everybody. And in the reaction, instead of, oh my God, Jokic is one of the greatest players I've ever seen, the reaction is, oh, look at Rudy getting clowned. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
I like the Nevermind stat because even just watching highlights of like Victor Wembanyama this year, it's like, yeah, guys did that to hit. Like they would like drive and they'd be like, no, never mind.
No, I'm good. Yep.
Just bail out. That's like, it just reminds me also of like the Giannis has no bag tweet where it's like they show Giannis trying to like do like some like dribble penetration and just constantly getting beat to his spot and backing up and then just referring to somebody else. That's also like a Nevermind. It's pretty funny. I like that.
But that's something, Mackey, that and with Brooke Lopez, you see it a little bit too. That's a stat that like rim protectors, it won't show up in the box score. You know what I mean? When they just change the offense's mind for them. When a guy goes up to take a shot and he's like, you know what? I'm going to pass this instead. Or he drives into the lane and he thinks he's got an easy layup and that guy is standing there. Like, that stuff doesn't show up in the box score, but that's what makes Rudy Gobert the defensive player of the year. Not only does he lead the league in blocked shots, but the never mind, I think it changes the entire complexion of the other team's offense and scoring.
Yeah, and also like the Timberwolves have the #1 net defensive rating in the NBA. Do you think that's by coincidence that like Rudy Gobert is the center point reason why they have the number one defense in the NBA. So pipe down, Rudy Gobert critics. That's the moral of the story here.
I don't think you're gonna find our podcast. Honestly, I don't know how many Bucks fans really know about the Timberwolves.
Well, they're learning today. They're going to learn today. And a guy who I think a lot of America is learning about, and I think it's just his name is just a greeting now in the great up north, Phil Mackey, is Naz Reid. Y'all just walk around just saying Naz Reid to each other, from what I understand nowadays. That guy, we were talking about it on yesterday's show. He is what Bobby Portis was for this Bucks team when they won a championship, and what we keep wanting Bobby Portis to be again for this team to make a deep playoff run and bring another trophy to Milwaukee.
Yeah, dude. So something hilarious. I can't remember before what game it was, but sometime during the last series, I think it was before Game 3 when they were coming back home. And a brilliant marketing ploy by a local tattoo shop. They were offering $20 Naz Reid tattoos. Just literally, we'll tattoo Naz Reid's name on your body wherever you want for $20. And like the local news picked it up, and they did like 400 tattoos. Now I hope they changed the needles after each one. I don't know what the sanitary precautions were, but there's like 400 people walking around with Naz Reid tattoos. I saw one person get one on their inner lip too.
Oh.
So it's the devotion is strong.
He's like a folk hero in Minneapolis now, and rightly so, man. Like what that guy brings to the table is again, just like we were talking about with Gobert. Like on some level, you can't really measure it, but it is why he was the sixth man of the year.
Yeah, it's so if you were to do like a ranking of when players get introduced either pregame or if they're bench players and they check into a game, in order, the three biggest ovations on any given night at Target Center are Naz Reid, number one, biggest ovation. Number two, Anthony Edwards. And number three, Luka Garza, the former center from Iowa.
What?
So Luka Garza, and he's kind of graduate. He's like a quad A player, like those minor league baseball players that hit like 400 in AAA, and then they can't hit a curveball in the bigs. So that's sort of him. He only gets in when the Wolves are up or down by like 20 points late in the game. Like he came in the two blowouts. And we call him Cigars of games, like when he comes in at the end just in celebration. But he comes in just like jacks up threes. And so it's Naz Reid, Anthony Edwards, and Luka Garza, the three most popular players on this team.
That's kind of like it's Bobby Portis gets the biggest ovation off the bench. Probably Giannis is like, when he's announced at the beginning of the game. And then it's Thanasis because, we're either up or down. And you're just going to see something crazy when Thanasis is out there. Because there was one game, he hit a dude with a sham god. That was wild. We're like, what? He's got Thanasis has moves?
Yeah.
Thanasis has
I do love those guys. I always call them the human white flag, but I love cigars at time. That's outstanding. But the guy who this all revolves around, Mackey, and we've touched on it a little bit, but man, and I don't know if I've ever said it to you in a conversation, Phil, but I've been patting myself on the back during this playoff run because I've been telling people for at least 2 years now, don't be surprised if Anthony Edwards is the best player in this league in 5 years and the face of this league in 5 years. And it's happened even faster. I don't know if we're going to say he's the best player in this league, but he certainly could be the face of this league by the end of this playoff run. And man, he just not only the performances on the court, but he's already racking up the quotes off the court. Like when he told the locker room guys in Utah, "I'll see y'all motherfuckers for Game 7." When he told Charles Barkley, who said, "I haven't been to Minnesota in like 20 years," he was like, "Bring your ass." Like the quotes, which is now the tourism board's like slogan, from what I understand. Like the lore of Anthony Edwards just continues to grow, man. And I love the kid, dude. I love watching him play. I love the person. I love everything about Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. He's the bring ya ass thing. By the way, shameless plug. You can get your official SKOR North bring ya ass t-shirts and hooded sweatshirts at skornorth.com/shop. That's right, Ramie. That's right, Drew.
Right.
I would love to get my hands on one of those. That would be outstanding.
I told Ramie I was gonna ask you about this. When are the Wolves getting better jerseys? Because I hate their jerseys, but I want an Anthony Edwards one so bad.
So do you hate all of their jerseys, or I don't really like their basic jerseys, but when they go like retro and they put the old Timberwolf on the center court.
Oh, I love retro. The retro
in
ones
on the retros. Yeah.
The current day ones, like, dude, for because like our area code in Milwaukee is 414, so on April 14th they had the Bucks City Edition jerseys. I didn't love them, but I'm like, hey, they were 50% off, so I'm buying one. It's just
yeah, they had like a lake edition at one point this year where it was like, I don't know, like lake colors. I'm not sure if it really hit, but just back to Anthony Edwards for a second. It is like, it's his personality, it's his aesthetic game too. Like Jokic, I think Jokic is one of the 10 best players of all time right now. And it's funny, I like to look at some of the advanced metrics. If you look at like player efficiency rating, all-time NBA, Michael Jordan is number 2, Jokic is number 1. If you look at like win shares per 48 minutes, all-time NBA history, Michael Jordan's number 2, Jokic is number 1. So I mean, I think if he stacks up another championship or two, he's going to go down as one of the all-time great players. But he is atrocious to watch play basketball. He's this gigantic oaf who's just like throwing up lobs over his head, fadeaways. Anthony Edwards might not be as efficient yet. He might not be as dominant yet in the way that Jokic is, but he's more fun to watch play basketball. He has a great beaming personality. He's able to check his teammates at age 22 with kind of a smile. I mean, some of the stuff with Karl Anthony Towns, he has become the big brother to a star player who's 6 years older than he is. You know, some of these post-game press conferences and Anthony Edwards and Cat get paired together. And, you know, a reporter will ask Cat a question and Ant will just interrupt and be like, he needs to stop fucking fouling, man. Like, you know, he's able to be a leader and needle guys who are 10 years older than he is. And he's got a more charming way about his leadership than Kobe did, than Jordan did. And maybe this is a hot take, but it kind of feels to me like, you know, the NBA for like 40 or 50 years has a natural order of events where the Lakers are the team, and the Lakers and the Celtics and any other team must sort of bow down to them and get beat in the Western or Eastern Conference Finals. And then the Pistons rise up and the Bulls must get knocked down the mountain 3 times. And then like, it kind of feels to me like the Nuggets with a 28-year-old 3-time MVP championship last year, that the Nuggets are supposed to be a dynasty, like maybe 2 or 3 titles in 3 or 4 years. And the Wolves are like jumping in line. That's what this feels like. It feels like they weren't necessarily supposed to get through the Nuggets, but they did because of Anthony Edwards. And now they're just sort of forcing a new path in the NBA's natural order of events.
Well, the thing about Anthony Edwards, too, is nothing about him feels fake. Like, it seems like he's genuinely just that guy all the time. I mean, he got in trouble, last year? I think it was last year when he was talking shit on Call of Duty to somebody, and he called somebody, like, a queer, and, like, he was, like, and they got, like, that got out, and that was, like, crazy. And people tried to, like, cancel him for that online, and people are like, it's just Call of Duty. That's how people talk.
But I even liked the way he handled that. Like, you wish he wouldn't have said it and started the whole thing in the first place, but he was like, hey, I got to be better. Like, a lot of guys would hide behind the shield of, their cancel culture is out to get me. You know what I mean? And go on the defensive. He was just like, no, man, I got to be better. That's not cool. What I did was not right. It's not cool. That's not how my mom raised me. And I got to be better than that. And I even like that. Like, everybody's going to fuck up. Everybody's going to do things that people don't like or that offend people. And it's how you react and how you handle those situations, I think, where you really show your true character.
Yeah.
He seems like the kind of guy who's just like a dude, like he just has like, he's relatable. Like, he's just like an everyman. Like, that's it. And he's just really good at basketball. But like, he's like, and because the reason I bring that up is because of my pure hatred for Tyrese Halliburton and how fake that guy is, where I'm like, you have 2 guys right now that are in their conference finals, and one of them, like, they're essentially the same. but like one of them just seems so like I'm putting on a show for everybody. And then it's like Anthony Edwards is like, I'm just me. And it's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
dude, even down to like what they wear going in, the pregame walk in front of the cameras, and you'll see Halliburton and some of these other players peacocking in their crazy outfits. Anthony Edwards shows up in gray elastic bottom sweatpants and flops, just ready to grind and play basketball. The other thing too that you guys are definitely familiar with is anytime a star player in a market like this rises up to a certain level, Giannis in Milwaukee, Anthony Edwards is not quite on Giannis's star level, but you start to hear like it's like the default talker on the national shows is how can we get Giannis to the Knicks or to the Lakers or whatever. And I think Craig Carton was one of the first ones on Fox Sports 1 to jump out. It's like these guys are discovering Anthony Edwards for the first time. And they go from, oh, Anthony Edwards, I haven't thought about him in 4 years. How do we get him to the Knicks or the Lakers? And that discourse starts on Fox Sports 1 and ESPN. And my comeback to that is like, okay, first of all, it's 2024. The internet exists. And so, you can just like build followers on Instagram without living in New York. Yeah, Anthony Edwards has 5 times as many Instagram followers as the entire Knicks starting lineup right now. And it's like, so we want to get Giannis to New York. We got to get Anthony Edwards to LA and New York. So if Anthony Edwards could get to LA, what could he how could he benefit? Maybe we could get him a custom shoe deal. Oh wait, he already has one. Maybe he could star in movies with Adam Sandler that are watched by tens of millions of people. Oh wait, he already has that too. Maybe he could do national commercials and have tens of millions of social media followers. Like, I hope at some point we can just stop trying to get the Giannis's and the Anthony Edwards to different markets. And by the way, if you're one of those guys, would you rather put Milwaukee on the map for the first time, Minnesota on the map for the first time, or be the 20th guy in line for a banner in Los Angeles and all the pressure that goes with trying to live up to Magic Johnson and Kobe and everyone that came before? So I'm already sick of that.
There's a debate. Does LeBron deserve a statue outside of, what is it called now? Crypto.com arena?
Yeah,
dude, that's because he had Kareem and Magic and Kobe and all these guys precede him. If he dude, the one championship that Giannis won in Milwaukee, he's getting a statue out there. Shit, Chris Middleton might get a statue outside of Pfizer Forum.
Is Coach Bud? Coach Bud?
No.
Coach Bud might get just a little, like a plaque. He might get a plaque.
No, we're gonna go Brandon Jennings before that because he's the one that started the Bucks in 6 thing. So
now, are we gonna put Bart Winkler's lawn chair? Is that gonna get a statue as well?
Yeah, Bombers. Yeah, put it out. Yeah. Just a fixed Bart Winkler. We have a bronze Fonz. Why not have a bronze?
I was gonna say they should bronze Bart's lawn chair. They should bronze it and put it on display outside the stadium.
Dude, remember,
Mackey, are you gonna be putting? Do you believe you're gonna be putting lawn chairs out along a parade route, or how far can this thing go, my friend?
So it's tough because, I want to tell you that, hey, game 1 against the Mavericks is all that matters. As players, as fans, let's all just stay focused on the task at hand. But if I'm getting out in front of myself, I think the Wolves are the best team left. I think the Celtics, especially if Porzingis comes back, the Celtics are very formidable, great regular season team. But there's like a weird chip missing with that team. Like they've had a great roster for several years. They're oddly exactly 500 at home over their last like 25 playoff games or 30 playoff games. So, and the Celtics are always good for just like 2 or 3 brain farts in any given series. I think the Wolves are the best team left in the playoffs, but it's also the Timberwolves. So we have no reference points for them ever playing beyond like May 25th. So it is surreal. But I do think it's going to be the Timberwolves that finally put Minneapolis back on the map for the first time since 1991, at least among the men's teams.
The thing about the Celtics to me, and this might be just Bucks fan salt, I don't know, but like they remind me so much of all the years that the Bucks were the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, where they blew everyone out of the water. Oh, they were the best team, most efficient, best net rating, top to bottom. And then the second they got punched in the mouth, they folded. And, I know people don't like to talk about Jason Tatum shrinking in big moments, but yeah, that guy's under contract for 3 quarters. And if it's close, don't expect him to show up. Like you gotta start relying on Derek White. Derek White was a better player in a lot of their playoff games than Jason Tatum was. Tatum does make good passes. He makes good decisions with the ball, but also I think he leans on that to hide from the media when he doesn't want to take a toughly contested shot. And then because also he would have to probably take that text back to Kobe Bryant saying, "I got you today, Mamba," because he wouldn't take the shot. Kobe would take the shot.
Yeah. By the way, on the Kobe front, here's a crazy, because people look at Anthony Edwards and like the way he plays, the little fadeaways and stuff, and just like the demeanor and everything, and they compare to Michael Jordan and Kobe. So in Game 7 against the Nuggets, Anthony Edwards went 6 for 24 from the field. It was one of his worst games as a professional in terms of like field goal percentage. But he grabbed a bunch of rebounds. He created he did a bunch of other things, played defense to make a huge impact. I think the last superstar to go 6 for 24 exactly in a Game 7 was Kobe Bryant in 2010 NBA Finals Game 7 against the Celtics, when he couldn't make it. It was one of the ugliest basketball games in the history of the playoffs. And it was the game where like Meta World Peace or Ron Artest, whatever he was calling himself then, had to hit big threes in the second half. But it's strange, man. All these Anthony Edwards comparisons to Kobe and MJ, they sound ridiculous, but when you start to actually watch, it does make some sense. It's kind of crazy.
No, he has that killer in him. He has that killer instinct in him for sure. Like it's a long way to go before he's Michael or even Kobe, just in terms of accomplishments and track record that he's got to pile up to really be in the same sentence as those guys. But I definitely see the demeanor and the killer instinct. I did want to, before we let you go, Phil Mackey of SKOR North, our guest here on the Ramie and Drew Show. Please follow, like, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. You do a lot of Vikings talk as well, obviously, up there, Mackey. How are you feeling about J.J. McCarthy? How do you think the NFC North stacks up right now? Because the Lions and the Packers are still there, and then the Bears and the Vikings both made big changes this season, obviously, at the quarterback position.
Yeah. I think it's one of the best divisions in the NFL. I mean, I think you kind of nailed the tiers. The Packers have one of the best, and the Lions, 2 of the best young rosters. Jordan Love, his last, 8 or 10 games were incredible last year. You bastards have hit on a 3rd straight franchise quarterback going back to 1992. Like, you can't even, for 5 minutes, you can't have Christian Ponder in your life or somebody. It's like, really? Not even like one Tavares Jackson for 2 or 3 years? We're just right back into a franchise quarterback, I guess. But
bad football, and then I was like, oh, this is interesting how this is working out. And then by the end of the year, I'm like, and we're back.
Yep. It's just like 38 touchdown passes, just literally back foot throws, for touchdowns.
Because like I'm a Jersey guy, so like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not gonna probably buy a Jordan Love jersey. We'll just see how he does. And then like by the end of the year, I'm like, do I want the one with the yellow numbers?
Yeah. Is there an alternate in here? Yeah.
Am I blue ones with the gold circle? Am I gonna go super like retro? Like,
yeah. So I think, dude, I mean, the Packers should be 11 plus wins. The Lions probably in the same boat, and then. Ramie, this is going to pain you, but I know you guys are all excited about Caleb Williams, and the Bears have a great roster now that they're building, but until the Bears actually develop and produce a young quarterback, I'm going to remain a little skeptical about Caleb Williams. Just a little bit.
That's been my line as well. And it has little to do with Caleb Williams. It has more to do with the Chicago Bears and their history of not being able to develop a quarterback, just the dysfunction of the organization as a whole. But man, it is a risky move to move on from a guy. Not that Kirk Cousins is like, he's not Tom Brady, he's not Aaron Rodgers, but a guy is solid and consistent at the quarterback position. To move on from him and go with a rookie, like what's the confidence level in JJ McCarthy? I was working with Hub Arkish. I'm sure you've come across Hub's work. He's covered the Bears in the NFL forever. Mackey, I was working with him on SKOR in Chicago on draft night. He said J.J. McCarthy is his favorite, best quarterback in this draft this year. Are you guys Are you guys that high on this dude as QB1?
I would say so. It's been pretty well reported now that Drake May was higher up on the Vikings wish list than JJ McCarthy, but they liked McCarthy, they liked Penix, so they were kind of cool with like a number of different options. But my stance has sort of been environment matters. Like let's take Sam Darnold for instance, who by the way is going to probably start week 1 for the Vikings here. So Sam Darnold was I think the number 3 overall pick like 6 years ago by the Jets. And if you go back and look at the situation he was plopped into. So first of all, NFL.com has like a prospect score on all their quarterbacks coming out of the draft process. The last 10 or 15 years. The highest prospect scores that NFL.com has given to quarterbacks. Joe Burrow was number 1, Sam Darnold was number 2, and Trevor Lawrence was number 3. So and that's just one publication, but Sam Darnold as an athlete, everything was very highly regarded. So he gets drafted by the Jets, train wreck organization. I believe Todd Bowles, defensive-minded Todd Bowles, was his first head coach. And then I can't remember the names of the offensive coordinators, but his first offensive coordinator, fired after 1 year along with Todd Bowles, has never gotten a job in the NFL ever again. Okay, then the second year, Adam Gase comes in, train wreck head coach, also has not worked in the NFL on that level since he got fired from the Jets. His second offensive coordinator winds up as like the Arkansas tight ends coach a year later, never back in the NFL. And Sam Darnold's number 1 targeted weapon was a guy named Robbie Chosen in 2018. So like he was destined to fail out of the gate, right? The Vikings right now, complete opposite. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. I think Aaron Jones still has some tread on the tire, at least for another year. You got 2 of the best offensive tackles, Kevin O'Connell as an offensive coach. So my take has been whoever gets drafted by the Vikings is going to pan out as a top 10 quarterback. Whoever gets drafted by the Patriots, probably screwed and destined to hold a clipboard for the rest of their career. So like if Drake May and JJ McCarthy had been flip-flopped, I would have said, well, Drake May, you're going to be a top 10 quarterback. JJ McCarthy, good luck in New England throwing to cardboard cutouts and getting yelled at by defensive coaches. So
no, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I think that's the reason, to jump back to the Bears for a second, that's the reason why they haven't been able to. It's not just that they keep drafting the wrong guy. They might be drafting guys who are not, maybe their scouting is off and these were just never great football players, but also the constant turnover at head coach and offensive coordinator and a GM who's hired a year after the quarterback or 2 years after the quarterback is drafted, and now he wants his own guy. Like, yeah, the environment has a great deal to do with how what the final product turns out to be in terms of a quarterback. And yeah. I agree with you that starting with Kevin O'Connell and then obviously Justin Jefferson, and I think it's a good environment for a quarterback to grow in there up in Minnesota. I'm not saying it's not in Chicago. I'm saying we don't know that it is yet because we haven't seen them do it.
Yeah. But either way, like it feels like the worst team in that division, maybe either the Bears or the Vikings, still going to fight for a fringe wild card spot.
Yeah,
so
I can see it.
It's going to be the Vikings have a pretty brutal schedule. I haven't really looked up and down the Bears or the other schedules in the division. So like the schedule is going to probably be the Vikings have like only 3 true home games before December and kind of a wild deal. But yeah, it'll be like a 1 year sort of bridge, and then the window opens back up in 2025 for the Vikes. So we'll see.
Mackey, last thing for you. I don't know if Drew had anything left for you, but are the Twins still carrying around that summer sausage from ballpark to ballpark? Is that still a thing?
I think now that they are about to become the first team to win 12 consecutive games and then immediately lose 12 consecutive games, I think they ditched the summer sausage.
Okay, good. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Oh,
because I think
had a Twins, or not a Twins question, a Timberwolves question. Since they're already doing the Giannis thing to Anthony Edwards, if it doesn't work out, where's he going to play? Who is your favorite non-Timberwolves player that you would like to see Anthony Edwards paired up with?
Oh, so we get to steal someone. Okay.
You get to bring somebody in because Anthony Edwards is going to be loyal to Minnesota and he's going to stay there. And you know what? I'll even throw in Cat as being his number 2 that sticks around for a longer amount of time. Cat will be his Chris Middleton. How about that? So okay. You can steal another star player because I got my wish with Damian Lillard. So now I want to see other fans get their wish. Is it like Luka? Is it SGA? Do you want, I don't know, do you want Jokic? Like there's.
It's a great question. So I can steal anyone, huh? I'm going to take Giannis, actually. I'm going to take Giannis and put him in a Timberwolves uniform.
I thought you might. I thought you might do that.
Fair.
Jaden McDaniels moves to the bench, and now the Wolves starting lineup includes, I suppose, like Mike Conley is like a 38-year-old point guard, so maybe I should steal a point guard. But can you imagine Rudy, Karl Anthony Towns, Giannis, sorry Bucks fans, Anthony Edwards in the same starting lineup? Oh,
that'd be
nuts. Pretty sick.
They would actually
that'd be pretty sick.
3 because it's the size. Giannis is a better defender. But yeah, that's just the thing now that I want to do to like everybody that we get on from every other market, that like their star player might get pilfered to the Knicks or the Golden State Warriors or the Lakers. No, it's like who are you stealing to put on your roster? Like if you were playing GM on 2K and you could force trade, because I used to do it with Dame Lillard, and then we got him, and I was like, holy shit! Like that.
Dude, it is hilarious how like the that's why the NBA is so awesome, because like the last 15 years, basically since LeBron decided I'm going to leave Cleveland for Miami, it's like that opened the floodgates for all of your crazy NBA 2K trade ideas just happening in real life. You know, like Durant would never go to the Warriors. That's ridiculous. Boom, Durant to the Warriors. You know, LeBron wouldn't go to the Lakers, and then AD and those guys. Yeah, boom, it happens. It's the best league ever.
That is Phil Mackey, SKOR North. Check out all their coverage of the Wolves throughout this playoff run. Great Vikings and NFC North coverage, Twins, whatever you're looking for. And even if you're not a Minnesota sports fan, like these dudes are just great. You guys are fucking crushing it, Mac. You have to know that. I couldn't be happier for you and Judd and Declan and the whole gang out there. So keep up the great work. Would love to get my hands on one of those get your ass here sweatshirts. I don't know if there's like a former employee discount or something like that.
We'll see if our guy Ross Brendel can pull a string or two for you. By the way, Ramie, one of the OG founding fathers of SKOR North, before many of the founding fathers were eliminated due to COVID. So yeah. But Ramie, it was a blast doing the show with you for a year and a half. In Other News remains one of my favorite all-time radio segments. So hopefully you can keep that alive in the future.
I have kept it alive in subsequent stops. So we'll see if anybody wants to hire me anytime soon, and I'll bring it back again. But Mackey, appreciate the time. The Wolves are my last rooting interest. Like there's not another team that I'm gonna glom onto if they don't finish the job. So I'm genuinely rooting for the Wolves and you guys to finish this thing off, man. We appreciate the time.
Awesome, man. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Phil. We'll talk to you again soon. There's Phil Mackey of SKOR North joining us here on the Ramie and Drew show. Just a great dude, man. And I meant every word about him and about the Wolves. I do want them to finish the job. Drew, I don't know about you, but like I don't like any of the other teams. I guess I don't hate the Mavericks. I don't hate the Mavericks. Yeah, I like Luka, but I can't say I'm rooting. I can't say I'm rooting for anybody if the Wolves are eliminated. If the Wolves are out, I'm pretty much done with the NBA playoffs. I guess is what I'm saying.
I'm basically going against the entire Eastern Conference at that point, but like right now I'm rooting for the Celtics against the Pacers because I'm so sick of that team. But also, if Jason Tatum manages to somehow get hurt, it's going to be really funny. So, like, once he gets hurt, it'll hurt. Like the roster got hurt. If just somehow that this happens to Jason Tatum, and I got to watch Celtics people be like, "What the fuck?" It's like, yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, like I said, either way,
I'll root for Luka.
We're gonna get the tiers of somebody that are gonna be very, very sweet. Whether it's the Pacers or the Celtics, and then likely the other one will lose in the finals to our Wolves, to Anthony Edwards and our Wolves, mine, yours, and Phil Mackey's Wolves.
Yeah, and Bart Winkler's.
and Bart Winkler's Wolves as well. Drew, any final thoughts, final words before we wrap this thing up?
Nah, Brewers are rallying right now.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They are playing, aren't they? I was distracted by the podcast. I'm gonna go watch that and make some chicken quesadillas. So I will talk to you again soon. This has been Ramie and Drew, episode 55. Follow, like, rate, review, tell a friend on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Apple's being weird lately. The last couple episodes are not up there. I'm working on it. We'll get it figured out. Either way, we'll talk to you again soon on Ramie and